All right, we're dancing, and I can't wait to introduce you all to this week's guest. Today, I interview a master of transformation who uses unconventional diet and training methodologies to ensure extended health and performance for himself and for his clients. A former bodybuilder turned DJ of the famed Studio 54 in New York City to an obese 30-something-year-old casino manager in Las Vegas who in 1998 restarted his mission to become the healthiest person he could be and is now a role model fitness coach, experienced Muay Thai fighter, business owner, husband, and father in his 50s with countless fitness certifications and programs, as well as an education in nutritional sciences. Welcome to the Winner's Circle introduces the original Silver Wolf, Shawn Powers. Welcome to the Winner's Circle.
Hey, how you doing today? I'm feeling great, man.
Doing fantastic. I'm looking to inspire with this podcast with you. Just like you inspired me, you actually inspired the name of this podcast. Welcome to the Winner's Circle.
I don't know if you cool.
I don't know if you remember back in January 2019 when there was a bunch of us down at Onnit Gym in Austin, Texas. They brought us in to do a filming for their durability or sort of their foundation training that going to be putting out later this year, I hope. And at night we had a dinner, and as a part of your talk where you kind of talked to us and inspired us with your story, you kind of closed with, this is the winner's table, and you put your glass down and you said anyone can have a seat at this table,
Right.
which is true. It's a choice. You choose to be a winner.
Yes.
And you become one in that process, and that inspired the name for this podcast, Welcome to the Winner's Circle. So thank you for that, Shawn.
Yeah, what an honor, man. That's you speak and you don't realize, anywhere you talk, you don't realize who's listening and what they're taking from it. And that's why you always want to try to give a positive message. And when I'm in the gym or just in the grocery store, and people ask me questions, I always try to answer as honestly as I can, right? And I'm not trying to put people down. I'm just trying to give them better options of what they're asking for. And through doing that, other people hear it. And it kind of, it starts a little wildfire, because those people hear it, and then in turn they tell a couple of friends, and it kind of sparks a movement. And, that's kind of what I'm hoping to do, is that not I want to create this Shawn Powers only movement, but I really think that we need to get back to basics with health. I mean, we need to get back not as far as ancient, but at least 150 years ago, where the practice was, having wholesome foods. There wasn't too many options of eating places. And if you did, it was at some restaurant, in the middle of nowhere, because you're in a mining town here in the States. But the food was real. There wasn't a lot of chemicals added to it, and people were healthier mentally and physically. And if we can just get back to not wanting so much because we have so much science in front of us, we can actually get stronger. And through that, when we do get the opportunity to use science to our advantage, man, we're that much more further into ourselves and our journey. And it's just a positive lifestyle that these people lived back then. It was family, right? They had a lot of belief in a spiritual system, and the food itself was the passion. You ate and you served people because you enjoyed company, and you enjoyed hearing stories, and you enjoyed life, and the food was vibrant. The food had so many different nutrients in it that they didn't realize back then, because it really wasn't the science. But somehow, some way, they went back out in the fields, or they went out and did what they did all day and came back and enjoyed that meal again. And there we were at the table. There we were with the family. There we were with the friends, just enjoying each other, the moment. There wasn't a lot of distractions at the time. So when I really try to keep everything I do at the basic level and try to build it from there.
Great, that foundation.
Yes.
So let's start at your foundation, and that is your mission. What is your mission today in 2020, Shawn Powers?
Well, my mission for myself is just to be healthier, and I'm building towards the next 10 years of my life. Every 10 years, I tell people that, you know, and myself, you should do something super epic, right? And in that, after the 10 years, you should be better than you were 10 years before. And really the only way to do that is to be healthy. Every 10 years, our body gets older. We can't help it. We may look 20, but on the inside, we're still our age, right? But if we can actually uh, use that to our advantage and know that, hey, I'm 50 this year, you know, as an example, I've known people turn 50 this year and they're asking me, hey, what do I do? I'm like, well, you know what, you should really start working on antioxidants. You should really start trying to eat this and eat that just to give your body a good edge, because when you turn 60, you know, what you're feeling today is going to be, you know, 50 times greater. So either we can feel 50 times greater or we can feel 50 times worse. So we got to work at that every day, just little by little, 1% at a time, you know?
Yeah. So since we're talking about age, I have a birthday coming up next week, and
Okay.
I'm about to turn 37. What would be
All right.
your advice for a 37-year-old?
Okay. So let's start off with 37. Okay. The average American dies at age, what, 78, right? So you're pretty much halfway through life. So you really got to start to take account that, all right, I'm halfway through life. What can I do in order to keep my body where it's at today, right? Exercise, obviously, but you know, if we're going to go out on PR every day, you know, my experience, by the time you're 45, you're going to be broken, right? Things are going to happen. You're not going to feel the same. Then the mental aspect of it's going to kick in. I would suggest today, at your age, you start looking at building a solid foundation of nutrition first and training being secondary. Now, you still have all the power and all the grit to really power through a lot of these exercises and do that. But without the fuel, this is where your body starts breaking down. Now, we may think, hey, you know, I'm still 37, I'm still young. No, you know, you have 37 years left in life. What are you going to do with those 37 years? You may feel great today, but what happens when you're 50? How great are you going to feel? What can you do today that's going to make you feel just as good today as you are at 50, which I did. It started my serious journey when I was 34. So I started looking into better nutrition with lots of fruits, right? But like deep purple, deep blue fruits. I didn't really take a lot of supplements, but what I did was I drank like acai berry every day. I would try to maintain with real good carbs, right? Not just through vegetables, but through some grains. And then my proteins, I really took it serious. So I switched from just eating, you know, anything that I can get my hands onto to really specific cuts of meat. I started eating a lot of offal, which is organ meat. I started incorporating that in my diet, and I started, you know, pacing myself. I wasn't trying to eat, you know, 6,000 calories a day. I would actually map out my meals, and then that would be according to my training, right? So I knew that if I was going to train heavy on one day, I knew that I needed to eat more carbohydrates so I can have that extra energy that I needed. And then after the workout, I would kind of unwind with a little bit of sugar. Kind of weird, but you know, I'd have that acai berry juice. I knew that there was antioxidants in it, but I also knew that there was like a lot of sugar that was going to kind of put that back into my muscles that they were craving at the time.
Mm-hmm. So this is when your journey began, when you were 34, I believe it was 1998, when you decided to put your health as a priority. Can we talk about the story that kind of got you to that place? What were you doing before that? I talked about in the bio how you were a bodybuilder,
Mm-hmm.
you were DJing at Studio
Mm-hmm.
54, living
Mm-hmm.
a very outgoing lifestyle. So let's talk about the journey that led you to that mission of really prioritizing your health at 34.
Well, you know, when I was younger, the way my physique is today is the way it was when I was about 16, 17, 18, right? I really built my physique up. We can go back that far. Yeah, my mom, she passed away when I was 10. Okay. So my father, you know, over a period of the next months, he started going out on a regular basis, and more and more and more. And I was left alone more and more and more. So there was a lot of trouble that a kid that had no rules can get into. So this is where my DJing started. So I really put myself into music and then working out. It's pretty much what I was doing when I was a kid. So Saturday night would come around, I would go DJ a gig, but all day I'd be working out, and throughout the week I'd just be concentrating on push-ups. And I had a little, it was funny because my room was like a little gym. I slept on a bench press. So it was kind of like I threw my bed out, had my bench press there. I slept on the floor of the bench press. I'd get up in the middle of the night, do a few hits on the thing and go back to bed, right? And then my DJ booth was inside my room. So I was practicing mixing. So there was a lot of that going on, right? And kids from the neighborhood would come over. Then I started getting them into working out. You know, we lived in a pretty tough neighborhood, so everybody had to hold their own. And I had a few influencers when I was young. This is way back when. So we're looking at Vietnam era, right? So I had a couple cousins that just came back from Vietnam. They were crazy, like work out, right? They get you up early. So that really started putting me into a mind frame of like never give up. Like I'd sit there and work out and work out and work out. They'd push it. They all had their own little specialty. One of them was a wrestler. The other one was a martial artist. And the other one was a boxer, right? So it was a kind of combination of all three. And they all had their own like principles and ways of doing things. And my neighbor, he was a former bodybuilding pro. And I think he probably went for Mr. America at one point in time. So he had all these little secrets. And the weights that I was using were just like borrowed, or I went from like yard sale to yard sale to try to pick up pieces. So I had a little bit of everything. It was unconventional because it never matched, right? Maybe two weights matched, but it would be from one company. It'd be 25 pounds. It would be from two different companies. And all my bars, everything was just basic, just stuff I can find, you know? And a lot of the stuff was from the 60s. So it was just like that old school iron, you know, I didn't have like machines. It was just pull-ups, push-ups. We'd run on the street. We had a little boxing ring in the backyard. We'd throw blows with each other, and we just kind of worked out that way. And these guys were like pushing me, and I was pushing my friends, and we just kind of got this whole thing going. So in between sets, I'd get on my DJ booth and I'd start mixing in between sets. And before you know it, it just kind of blew up into this big thing. And it was just a part of my lifestyle from that point on. So I had this physique, really into shape, really aggressive, not in a bad way, but just like, dude, I can do that. Yeah, let's do this. Let's go here. Let's go there. Let's climb this. Let's climb that. And then, you know, about, I'd say when I was 19, 20, I started DJing in 21 and over clubs. So that's when things started changing, right? Because now you can drink, you know, I mean, it was still illegal, but they didn't care, right? And, you know, then the women came into play, and the lifestyle started changing a little bit. I was doing less of working out and more of concentrating on the nightclub stuff. I became really good at what I did, really got a name for myself. And this is how I was able to go to New York, and I was able to DJ at all these places all over the country, especially in LA, New York. Like I said, we did Studio 54 out there. It's just that it was a big ride, but here I am, 3, 4 in the morning. I'm barely getting off my shift or my DJ thing, and then I got to go to sleep. And then little by little, working out became less and less and less. So I kind of put that in the back burner, and I went to Las Vegas, and a good friend was one of the main guy in Vegas, and I don't want to give out any names, but he's pretty famous, right? He has a hotel named after him, right? And it's not Trump. So, and I went out there and just to go hang out, and he gave me a job. And he says, if you do this and do that, you can become, you know, a GM for me at you know, my casinos. So at the time, he was the owner of the Four Queens and the Golden Nugget. And then he was building the Mirage Hotel. So I started gigging it over there. and I was a GM for the Las Vegas casinos in Old Vegas, which was the trip in itself, a totally different story, a different podcast. But
Yeah.
you know, what I was doing for a living, I was counting money, and I was telling people what to do, and I was walking, 5-6 miles a day because I'd have to go from place to place, and these casinos were big. Then I'd walk everywhere, right? And I started getting back into shape, right? So I was doing that for a few years, and I really decided to stop altogether and start a family. And I knew that at the time, the type of lifestyle I was living with the DJing and the Vegas lifestyle, traveling from Miami and New York and all these places, that raising the family wasn't going to be that thing. So I got married, and I went to Los Angeles, and there was this new thing that was coming out called the internet. I went to school for that. And so I went from, walking around 5-6 miles a day, working out, getting into shape, back to sitting down behind a desk. And this is where it all tanked, because now instead of me exercising, I was stuck behind my desk 12, 14 hours a day sometimes, because I was a server administrator, web designer. I wore many hats, right? It was just a tech job. And instead of going out and working out, I was going to lunches or having lunch brought in. Man, so I gained like 70, 80 pounds within a 2-year span. And it was just so bad that I couldn't even climb up, a flight of stairs without like, man, I'm so out of breath. I practically having a heart attack. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor says, yeah, you've got a lot of problems going on here. You got this with high cholesterol, you have a bad heart, you have high blood pressure, you're clinically obese, and these, not on all those terms, but this is kind of what the tests were bringing back. So I was listening to the doctor, and I says, okay, what can I do? And he started giving me these medications, right? You got, the things that thin out your blood, you got the stuff for your high blood pressure, you got the stuff for your cholesterol. And I started taking all these medications, and it only made matters worse, right? So I started talking to him. I said, hey, well, what if I started eating vegetables? What if I started doing that? And he just kind of looked at me and says, you know what, man? He goes, those things aren't going to work. He goes, this is why we have medication, so we can control it. So I went from a 220 to like 260, right? And I went into his office one time as a checkup, and we had taken tests, and everything got worse again. So he said, I'm going to have to double your medication. And sadly, doubling my medication meant that I went from a $400 a month habit, I'm going to call it, to an $800 a month habit. And that's with insurance. So I'm taking about 12, 14 different medications. So I said, okay, whatever. I kind of agreed with him. I got my prescription, and I walked out, and I said, you know what, screw this, again, to myself. I said, I'm just going to go back to basics. I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to change my eating habits. I'm going to take a lunch. I'm not going to let the stress hit me. So I went from that to the following week getting a gym membership, and I just started walking. I couldn't do anything else but walk because I was so heavy. And after about a month, I started walking faster. And then about a month after that, I was jogging a little bit. So I had already lost, 20 pounds. I totally changed my diet. I went back to the way I was eating as a kid, just all natural food. I didn't eat out anymore. I kind of had my lunch box or lunch bag with me at work. So I started really getting back to that minimal lifestyle that maybe not everybody can do, but it was for my body, and it kind of what worked as a kid, right? And little by little, man, I started dropping the weight. So maybe about 3 months into me just walking and jogging, I was able to get back into the weight room and start lifting weights. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to go into the gym and I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to do this and do that. It depends on how long you've been away from the gym. I was away from the gym for at least 4 or 5 years, and I knew that by the doctor saying that I had a weak heart or I had all these conditions, that I just couldn't jump in and say, okay, let's lift, let's do this. I said, no, you gotta, it took years for you to become this person. It's gonna take time for you to undo all those steps and go back and revert to who you were at one point in time. And that's kind of what I did. I wrote everything down. I started doing research with food, because I knew food was the most important. I could go exercise, but if I'm going to go home and eat 20,000 calories in a meal, and I'm only burning, 500 calories at a workout, it's not going to do me any good. So I started writing down what I'm eating. I started looking it up on the internet from what the information was. Back in '98, there really wasn't a lot of information about, organics. As a matter of fact, organic really didn't exist. Whole Foods was a small store. It wasn't a big chain. There was only a few. And it's kind of funny because around that same time where I was living out in LA, they had this big strike with Kroger Foods. And that's Kroger Foods. It was Vons and I think Albertsons and Smiths, right? So I went there to go collect this kind of side story. I went to Albertsons to go and get a prescription. And I wasn't going there to eat. I was just going there to get a prescription. I remember the butcher pointing me out. He's like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, I'm just here to get my prescription, man. I'm not here to buy food. I need, I'm sick. I need these things. He goes, all right, go ahead and go in. So when I went in there, they slashed all my tires. And I'm like, you son of a bitch, and he just looks at me like, yeah, right. And I'm like, so I stopped going to those stores, okay, because it was dangerous, right? And I started going to a store called Trader Joe's, right? That wasn't union. And at the time, Whole Foods wasn't union. And that's when I started getting introduced to a different lifestyle of eating. I noticed that when I went to these places, they had natural fed beef, they called it. There was corn fed and there was natural fed. It was basically grass fed. A little bit more expensive, but when I bought it, it tasted different, right? I noticed that I wasn't having, issues with bloating, gas, headaches, sweats, whatever, anything that you would eat that would kind of have an adverse effect on you. I wasn't having. So I started shopping there. And I said, the Kroger strike lasted almost a year and a half. So I didn't visit any of those stores for a year and a half. And I just became this one person that would only shop at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods now. Now, we all know that Whole Foods is called Whole Paycheck at the time. So I started learning, like, dude, you just cannot shop the aisles. You just got to get what you need and just go around the edges. If you look at the edges of the store, you have one side, which is like your vegetables. The back is usually the butcher. And then the sides is usually like a water. And then in the front, you have your cash register, right? So I started just hand picking foods and doing this. And I'm losing, more and more weight as I'm doing this and getting stronger. So we're looking at, from the time that I went from that doctor's office to going back to the gym and everything, was 1 year. Okay. So I went back to the doctor's office and I had dropped 30 pounds. And he says, you see, I told you these prescriptions work, man. He goes, yeah, we're on the right track. And I showed him the prescriptions. I said, I never went to go get them. What I did was I didn't take your advice and I just went back to basics. I like, effed him, like, dude, I don't need you anymore, right? And he was upset. He's like, you could have killed yourself. I go, no, you know what? I actually saved my life. And that's kind of where my journey really took off, because I gave myself the power to, take care of myself. And whatever I had done as a younger person to get to where I was at, I went back to those basics. And here we go, back to basics. Don't complicate things. Once you start complicating things, there's too many variables. And if you're there to have a healthy lifestyle, your body doesn't want a bunch of stuff. It just wants certain things to make it evolve, certain things to make it live, certain things to make it stronger. I mean, you could have all the greatest equipment in the world, but if you don't have your squat or your deadlift or your pull-up or your push-up, all the curls and all this and that isn't going to make you stronger. It may work for a little while, but you know what? You're going to be broken inside because you're not going to build your core. You're not going to build your stamina. You're just going to stand there and do vertical and horizontal exercises. You're not really going to move around, which you really need to do. And those are basic movements, right? Basic movements that make you strong everywhere. So same thing with food, the basics. Doesn't mean it has to be bland, but a basic wouldn't mean, hey, I'm going to go out and buy garlic salt. No, basic would be, I'm going to go get garlic and I'm going to cut it up and then I'm going to put it on my food. That's basic. You're still using garlic. You're still getting that flavor, but now it has a benefit to you instead of just the sodium itself, you know, having that, tricking your mind and making that taste really good. So, I mean, you know, that's kind of like in a nutshell, how I started my serious journey.
Beautiful. Let's talk about those basics. What are from all your journey with food since 1998, what have you learned about food? What are the basics that we must, or you advise us to adhere to for longevity in our health?
The first is portion control. Okay. We need to learn that our eyes are bigger than our stomach. And yeah, we can force feed food down our throat, but our bodies can only digest and turn into nutrients, you know, only so much they can do at one time. And, you know, this is before veganism took off. This is before gluten-free. This is before all of that. It's just having your basic protein, your vegetables, and maybe a starch, just a little bit, but your protein being the most, and making it the highest quality possible that you can eat. Not the biggest quantity, but the highest quality. It's about quality, if anything. Portion control and quality of the food. Now, once the food reaches the stomach, this is where we got to learn about digestion, because without good digestion, you know, you're sending that stuff into the sewer and it's not going into the body. And there's a lot of people that look fit, but it's like malnutrition. You can tell. You can look at their skin, you can kind of look at their sleep patterns, or just the way that they speak about their life, that there's malnutrition going on. And we got to learn that, again, it's not quantity, it's about quality. And I can eat a 6,000 calorie diet of whatever, just to feed me the 6,000 calories. But, you know, I'm going to be pooping away, 1,500 calories, 2,000 calories of it off the top. And then the rest is just going to sit in the stomach. I can eat a 1,500 to 2,000 calories, super nutrient dense diet in one day and get the same benefit that you would from 6,000 calories. It's not calories in, it's not calories out. It's about what nutrients your body's absorbing and how much of them that they're absorbing. I learned that early on, even as a kid. When I was a kid, they didn't have nutrition stores that sold, protein powders. There wasn't. It was like eggs, egg whites, and that's kind of what people would do. They eat steak and eggs. That's why the old bodybuilders are steak, eggs, potatoes, because they didn't have the protein powders. So I kind of learned that my body, loves this and loves that. And, there was a few guys that I didn't know, the big bodybuilders back then. I wasn't into bodybuilding. I just was into building my body to get stronger for sports or, for the girls or whatever it may be. But I didn't know who Arnold Schwarzenegger was until about 1983. Right? And when he made that movie Conan, I'm like, who is this big guy? They're like, dude, that's Arnold. I'm like, who? So I was in my own world. Even now I'm still in my own world. I just kind of concentrate on myself because it's a science experiment to me. What I can do with my body, I can explain to somebody else. What somebody else does with their body, I can't explain how it works, but I can explain what works for me and speak on it with heart and passion.
Beautiful. So like there's so many areas where I want to talk to you about this. So since we're talking about eating, a big thing with people and their eating is emotional eating. Could you talk to me about that, and how do you advise clients that you work with that eat emotionally, usually as a means to avoid something, which people could use drugs, they could use TV, they could use sex, and a lot of people, they use food.
Right.
So how do you advise a client to deal with that when they recognize they're emotionally eating?
Well, you kind of
But they may
have
not even
to.
recognize.
Well, you know what? I deal with this a lot, and I try to tell them that, you know, it's you have to really adjust your mind to knowing that you don't need this right now. Not saying it's bad for you. I tell them, I go, just if you're gonna dig into ice cream, don't beat yourself up for it. Just know that it's not what you should be doing, and maybe instead of eating the whole bowl of ice cream, just eat half. And then little by little, you take a little bit more away and a little bit more away, and you replace it with something else. Like, hey, why don't you, you know, eat a bowl of fruit, acai bowl, you know, that's kind of ice cream. So I try to replace it with something that's positive. So at least they're getting something out of it. And then, you know, as we work together on stuff, they see that those changes that they make, if their goal is to drop weight, they'll notice that, hey, my waistline's going down. I'm like, yeah, you don't need that type of ice cream, but here you're eating a fruit and tastes just like an ice cream, but you know what? It has all these nutrients for your body. And you didn't eat that much. And it was because it was so nutrient dense, you got fuller quicker, you know, because your body was satisfied. So little by little, I play with them and I say, man, just look at what you're doing and just avoid that and try to replace it with this, you know, and it works because people have that aha moment, like, aha, okay, I didn't have the ice cream, but you know what? I had a bowl of strawberries. I'm like, there you go. You know, it's not about emotional eating. It's about trying to get them to take every bite and know that you can do damage or you can do good. I think a lot with emotional eating is like they're trying to get back at themselves. Like, yeah, I need this because I've had such a bad day and blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that. And it's not about rewarding yourself. It's not about taking anything out on yourself. It's just about feeding your body and what better you can do in order to make your body work, you know, in better efficiency or efficacy. You know, it's just about that. And once they start realizing that, it changes the tone. Nothing's going to happen overnight. And I tell my people, this isn't an overnight thing. You know, before we even get into the weight training on a serious level, I put them on an eating pattern, right? I try to get them to understand portion control first, and then let's really up the ante on the nutrients in your food. And people eat fried foods and they come to me and I had pizza. I go, okay, how many pieces did you have? Oh, I had like 6. Okay, next time you do that, eat 3. Okay, just eat 3. And the other 3, save it for later. Let's split the meal in 2. Then they start learning that 3 satisfies them. And then later on, because they have food next to them, they're not worried like, oh my God, I don't have any more food. They have it there. So it's kind of like their safety net, like, oh, I know I can eat this later. Then they do eat it later, but yet it took maybe a half an hour to an hour in between those 2 meals or those 2 snack sessions. Now they're starting to psychologically learn portion control. Don't have the pizza 6 slices at a time. Have a few. And then later on, you can always have a few more. If you're at a restaurant, ask for, you know, a take home bag. That way, later on that night, you're a little hungry, you can eat it again. Now you have 2 meals. Instead of paying $24 for 1 meal, you're paying, you know, $12 for 2 meals. So now you're getting more out of it. So you just kind of got to throw these things at life because, you know, everybody wants their perfect client. Everybody wants their client to do this and do that. But the world's different to everybody. You know, everybody's going through different things in life and different triggers. But if we can get them to think that you can do better on a trigger, and then you can put away the other stuff, you can replace that good stuff with the you know, bad trigger point stuff that's going to harm their body.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Another issue that jumped to mind when we're talking about food and also exercising is body image. So a lot of people are really concerned about their body image, and that really fuels their diet, their working out. So let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on body image, working out, and nutrition?
Yeah, one of the things that I run across a lot is that people want to look good before they get to the gym. Like they may be overweight and they may need to exercise. And they're like, well, I need to drop at least 20 pounds before I can get into the gym. So what we'll do is we'll go into the gym and we'll start working out, right? And I'll just say, hey, you notice? And they're like, what? I go, you notice everybody? And they'll look around. Yeah, what about them? I go, nobody gives a shit. We're in here. Nobody cares. Nobody's looking at you. Don't put your whole emotional aspect of training about how people react to what you're doing. Nobody cares. What happens is that maybe today you may look like this, but 6 months from now, you're going to be one of the people that you're looking at to think that they look great or they feel great. You're going to be one of those people. You're going to be a regular. It's just about being comfortable where you're at. And it doesn't matter what you're wearing, doesn't matter, who's looking at you, because they're not. People can care less. The people that are getting the attention are the people that want the attention. People that are, yelling out, people that are trying to lift as heavy as they can. Those are the people that want attention. We're just working out. And the type of training that I teach these people, it's not your basic, hey, let's get on the machines. Hey, let's do this, let's do that. I'm trying to teach them to work out with anything and everything and feel confident in doing that. So we'll grab a kettlebell and we'll do a few movements and they'll start feeling good. So once you start working out and you start getting involved in what you're doing, you're not looking at everybody else at what they're doing. So I try to teach people how to lift with equipment that nobody goes to and feel confident doing that. It gives them power. So you have to give people empowerment when you get clients that kind of feel that way. It's about, you have the deer that's like stuck in the headlights. They're like stuck, but you kind of like snap out of it. Nobody's watching you. You're the only one watching yourself, watching everybody that you think are watching you, but it's not true. Once they start seeing that and believing that, then they're just going in there for their own thing, and it's about, this is your time. This is your 1 hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it is that you can get away from all your problems and you can do better for your body. It's just you and me, just you and me.
And what about the other clients, the ones that look good, and they're so caught up and concerned about how they look on the external? And we were talking about this earlier about not being less concerned about the internal, where that's what's the most important part is the inside rather than the outside. How do you advise a client on that process?
I'll work out with them, right? And I'll show them secrets that I know that I've developed, and will, impact a body, part. And I'll have them do things around that body part. So if, let's say your biceps is what you're looking at, we'll do curls, and I'll say, okay, concentrate on the curls, but let's concentrate on your hand position. Let's go from, the pinky being in the center of your shoulder to the pinky being on the outside of your shoulder. And, let's kind of squeeze our thumbs a little bit. And then they'll start noticing that those are different muscle groups or muscle fibers that they've never hit before, because they're so concentrated on looking at themselves and looking how cool they look. Now they're kind of having a test of, wow, I've never felt that before. Man, okay, just a little bit of a hand twist or an overhand or an underhand, spreading the legs a little bit more, or, using less weight, but going as slow as you can and bringing it up as quick as you can. I'll try to do that to those type of peoples, because I want to get them out of their head of, I'm better than everybody, because it's not that. Everybody's at a different level. And by working out with them, I'm able to like partner with them and say, okay, this is mind muscle connection. We're here to concentrate on doing this and doing that. And you know what? You are no better than that person over there. You just have, you have a coach, or you're just a level higher because you've been here longer. But you were that person at one time. So let's just concentrate on ourselves and let's work at these body parts.
So let's talk about transformation. A lot of people are at the doorway of transformation. So they realize they need to eat better, or they realize they need to take better control of their portion control, or they need to exercise. but they have that resistance that comes up, that thing that stops us from doing the thing that we need to do, that
Mm-hmm.
stops us from saying yes to our call to adventure. How have you broke past fear and continue to fight your resistance on a daily basis?
You know, this is where you would need some type of like help with somebody, you know, kind of giving you, cheering you on, right? A mentor, so to speak. Myself, I went and reverted back to, you know, my cousins I was talking to that were the tough trainers for me as a kid. And, you know, I was kind of like, this is true what they said. You know, it may have been hard, but the harder I work, the better I feel. And you have to teach yourself about discipline. It doesn't matter if it's food. It doesn't matter if it's weight training. It's mental discipline. You got to kind of use that frontal lobe and your rear vortex at the same time to have that balance of, I can do another rep, or you know what, I'm here, let's just work out. I mean, motivation is probably the toughest thing for people to continue to do. I've come across people that are super motivated and then somehow, some way they become unmotivated. So how do we motivate those people that, you know, are right in the middle of this and they're, you know, they're just 30 days away from a good breakthrough? What do we do? So this is where you have to sit back and you have to talk to these people and reiterate the small wins. Look at where you were at and look at where you're at now. Can you imagine where you're going to be in 30 days? I go, you know, it's not a lot of time if you look at the whole lifespan of people. 30 days is just a drop. It's just 30 days. It's not really that much. You're only looking at what, 20 workout sessions or 16 workout sessions. It's just something that, you know, just do it for yourself. And really, I really kind of like get into people's heads and I really praise them and say, look, man, look how good you're doing so far. It just, more praise that you can give these people about the small wins that they have so they can see, the more confidence they have.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of your mentors and helpers you had on your way. You said that your uncles were a big part. Who
Mm-hmm.
are some other mentors you'd like to take the moment to acknowledge, and what did you learn from them?
One of my big mentors was Greg Plitt. Um, I was, you know, working out and really getting into, you know, fighting, training, and doing all these things. But there was right in the beginning of the Iraq-Afghanistan war, where they were out there trying to recruit for Navy SEALs. I was too old, but I still wanted the challenge. And it was this thing called the Navy SEAL Challenge. And what the Navy SEAL Challenge was that it was a 4 different meetings where you would be timed for certain things you can do, for swimming, running, whatever it may be. And if you were able to meet those times and be on the top, you would earn this thing where you would be able to train with the Navy SEALs, right? And it was, you know, a 16-week course. So I didn't know, you know, how to really approach that. I mean, I had the mental capacity. Thought I had the physical capacity. So I started training differently. This is where the super unconventional me started coming out, right? I'm picking up anything and everything that I can think that would help me get me stronger. Not just weights, but rocks, sticks, boards, anything. Everything to me was a workout. And I was in this gym, and this was in the Valley in Los Angeles. And there was this guy working out there, and I was training hard, and I was doing this and that. And he walked up to me, he goes, "Hey, that's pretty damn good training. It's kind of, you know, why do you want to work out with me?" And it ended up being, you know, Greg Plitt. So over time, I didn't know, but he was a Ranger, right? And he graduated with honors and stuff from West Point. So he really dug into my head, and he just laid it out and said, you got to be a team member, and you got to know the 5 principles of training, and it's mental, physical, spiritual. You know, it's kind of like their whole menting of the Zen and the Kung Fu Sansu, the families of China, and how they were the grasshopper and one was the tiger. And this whole mental thing that he started telling me as I was training, I really started listening. And he started just digging into me. And he says, man, you got what it takes, but you know what? You don't have what it takes. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, you can do this physically, but what are you thinking right now? Are you thinking about yourself, or are you thinking about the big picture where you can be? So he just kept at it and at it and at it and molding me and molding me. And I just, like, I guess one day just snapped and it all clicked, right? So I went in and I did those Navy SEAL challenges, and I won. I won all 4, and I was able to train with the Navy SEALs. And dude, I mean, that was like probably the hardest mental and physical training I have ever done in my life, but it had the biggest payouts. It just totally changed me forever. I am no longer this guy that wants to work out by himself. I'm this guy that wants to work out for the world. You know, I wanted, this is where I'm at. This is kind of where things started changing for me physically, because now I'm taking my workouts a lot more serious and trying to tie in the nutrition in a huge way, that I'm here for the big win. And I don't have that loser mentality, as he kept telling me. It's like, dude, it's 2 a.m. We're here at the gym. Where's everybody else at? Oh, I know it. They're sleeping. Your enemy sleep while you become stronger. So little things like this kept like really getting into my head and gave me more confidence everywhere. Work, play, you know, just in life in general. I was just walking around like, wow. And then when I finished that Navy SEAL challenge, it like transformed me. Like, dang, I was this new guy, and I had a new attitude with me. Not a bad, just a new attitude of like, I can tackle anything. You can't outwork me. That was my whole thing. You can't, even at work, like, you can give me 80 hours, but I can do 120. So, I mean, all these things started coming into play. He was probably in the last, you know, I don't know, 15, 16 years is probably my biggest mentor, and that really kicked me off into where I'm at today. It totally changed me, totally changed my workouts.
How do you ensure that your workouts are balanced, right? Because he said that it's 2 a.m. Where's everyone? They're sleeping, but I'm working out. Well, what's preventing you from just working out 20, like all the time? How do you balance working out, recovery, enjoyment of life? How do you achieve that balance in your life?
Well, with anything, when you start out, you're brand new, you just kind of like immerse yourself in it, dude. I'm in it all the way, in it to win it. But you learn balance. You learn that, yeah, I'm there at 2 a.m. and my enemies are sleeping, but you know, I'm there for a reason, and I need to go home and I need to relax. You basically learn it yourself, because you take yourself to a wall and then you can't do anything. You're like, what did I do wrong? Or you're not making gains, or you know, your body starts aching and you're like, what am I doing wrong? And over time you kind of learn that balance, like, okay, yeah, I'm working out, but you know what, I also need to sleep and eat better. It's just a matter of like experience. You know, I could teach somebody that, or I could tell somebody that, but until they hit that wall, they don't know what I'm talking about. So it's just a thing over time that you teach yourself, you know, and you know, as I age, it's really come into play. I would love, I mean, I see these kids doing all these fantastic things, or these young guys, and I'm thinking, yeah, I used to do that. And I'm not mad because I can't do as much as I used to. I understand that I'm physically strong for my age. And you know what? I'm physically strong for a lot of ages. But you know what? It's about what's going to happen to me 5 years from now. I mean, I look at Ronnie Coleman, and you know, he's 55, 56, and he's practically bedridden. And he was the biggest dude in the world, but he overdid it. He didn't know when to stop. And you just have to kind of take that ego out of you and just sit back and say, okay, the ego is now just become the general, and now the general makes all the decisions. And the decision right now is not to fight the war, but to relax, and then we can attack it later on.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that Navy training was the hardest thing you've ever done mentally and physically.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was your greatest challenge, and maybe it was. But I'd like you to talk about your greatest challenge, life challenge you've ever had, you've ever faced, and how you overcame that situation and what you learned from it.
There's a couple of them. We've already talked about me being the clinically obese. Okay, so let's start from there. When you are put on the sideline and you're told that literally the doctor says, and you're 34 and he says, if you don't change your life with this medication in 10 years, you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke. And you go from that and you really kind of hunker down and say, okay, I'm not going to press the panic button, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate and look over my life and then start over again. And let's work from the basics and work our way up to becoming a Mr. Olympian competitor yourself. That right there was one of them. I mean, I really had to retrain myself to do a lot of stuff, especially food. I could go back into lifting and bench pressing and squatting and everything, but it was the food that was really the changing, moment. Another one was that when it's kind of cool because I think this is God's way, but when my youngest daughter was born in 2004, my wife had gestational diabetes, and she normally, 128 pounds. She went up to 175. So there was going to be a problem with the birth, and it was going to be a problem because she was bedridden. So I had already had 6 years into my whole, I'm going to be this new person, and I've got this diet going on, and man, I'm physically fit and I'm feeling great. I parlayed that into her, and my daughter was born, but yet she was going to be, lifelong on hormone pills and this and that the doctors wanted to do. And I pulled her off to the side and I said, okay, we're going to create something, and we're going to create a lean body for you. And this is where one of my companies came up, was Lean Bodies. It was all based off of her. So I rewrote her diet. I took 8 weeks off from work, and I cooked for her, and we went to the gym, and I showed her how to work out, and we did all these different things together, and she ended up losing all that weight and getting back down to 122. She didn't need to be on medication, and to this day she's still physically fit and physically active because of that. I think that on a personal level, that's probably one of my greatest achievements, is saving somebody's life or prolonging the life of my wife so she can love our kids and me longer. I think that's what it is. It really stems from that, because without her, she does everything I do. Ever since that point, she's listened to everything I said. She was, at the time, she was into the buns of steel and, all those old style workouts at Jane Fonda. And I'm like, that's not going to work. And then I finally got her to understand that food is your friend, and you can be best friends, and you can have a magnificent life. And then on top of that, you can be physically active, not physically fit, just physically active. And that turned into physically fit.
Mm-hmm. So family has been a big part of your life. You gave up your career in casinos to start a family,
Mm-hmm.
and you made family a real big priority. What has your family taught you about love, and what does love mean to you?
Well, without a partner, which I consider my wife, she's my best friend, because we've grown together. We've been married 27 years. So we've grown together. We've gone through the ups and downs. And without her, I mean, it's kind of like a rock. You have that one person you can always go to, and you may have other people that have, nefarious reasons to be your friend, or, want you to go down a certain path. And, she's always been there to, you know, be that person to lean the shoulder on, and, hey, I got this. We need to talk about this. Let's build this together. We have best friends, when we're younger, when we have like, our friend down the street, dude, this guy so-and-so, he's my best friend, dude. We do everything together. We go camping, we do this, we have a great this and that. If you can find a partner, like that you love, on a higher level, like my wife, stick to it, and, work with it. It's not always going to be perfect, but from that, my kids were born. I had a pretty fucked up childhood. you know, and I had no rules. I mean, I look back and I talk to my friends and we're like, man, we had the greatest time as kids, because literally at like 11, 12 years old, I could take off for a week, 2 weeks, and, you know, come back home and, you know, no difference, you know? So there's a lot of power. But then again, I said, I don't want that for my kids, because it took me a lot to learn, you know, the good and the bad, where here now with that experience, I could teach them, you know, to be stronger individuals in life, not to be these, you know, rich lawyers, you know, that's okay, but let them be that. My whole thing is to be that mentor, like, you know, Greg Plitt was for me, that mentor, that rock that only love can bring, and that they can be, you know, real good adults and be positive in the world. That's really important to me, that my kids remain positive and, you know, be an addition to the world, you know, positive energy. So, you know, love is that, you know, it's about feelings, it's about emotional, like spiritual and physical. And if you can have all that in one, don't let it go. Just go with it and just enjoy it, you know? Not everybody gets it. And when you do get it, know that you have a good thing.
So
Don't
in
be
that,
afraid of it.
yeah, in that 27 years, how did you navigate those highs and lows that is a part of any relationship with others and with oneself? What did you learn about navigating those highs and lows with another?
Well, you know, it's about being patient and understanding, like we were talking about, everything takes time. And, you know, if you can share what your passion is with somebody, and they receive it and they want to share that with you, then you know what, that's going to help you through those times that are harder. And times that were hard for us was, you know, because we've been through so many, you know, financial burdens of, you know, now we have the pandemic, but we also had the dot-com bust. Then we had the automobile bust, and then we had the real estate bust. So we've had all these like somewhat depressions, you know, era type of things happen to us. And, you know, we learn to like, okay, time to go back to basics. Here we go again, go back to basics, just buckle it in. We don't need all that stuff right now. And that person agreed with it. We've, you know, engaged in businesses together, but it's businesses that are here to benefit the family, right? And it's about patience, and it's not about me. I mean, I could say, you know, she's lucky, she married me. And a lot of dudes think this, man, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened to her. It's not true. You know, they may be the greatest thing that ever happened to you to make you the greatest thing that ever happened to her. And you really got to see that and just be humble and say, you know what? I'm just as good as to her as she is to me. And I'm lucky that I'm able to have somebody like this in my life. Because there's so many situations out there that can pull you away. I mean, I've had friends that came into my life and left. They come in, dude, let's go out tonight. Remember the DJ days? Let's do this and let's do that. And you kind of got to look at it and say, you know what? You know, that was then and this is now. And, you know, I have different things that I'm working towards. It's fun, but you know what? I got something else to do. You got to really sacrifice. And you'll see that once you make those sacrifices, that it comes back in tenfold, because it's somebody that actually loves you physically and you know, spiritually, and you really get that good feeling going. And once everything's working together, you have like a harmony in your house, and it's just peaceful. Go to work, you had a bad day, you come home, it's peaceful. You know, the world sucks, but you know what? Why make that at home? You just work at it. And if it's about giving in too, I mean, I've said I'm sorry just as much as she said she's sorry, right? It's about not having that ego. And like I said, this is what these guys taught me, you know, with that Navy SEAL training and Greg Plitt. Like, hang your ego at the door, because you know what? You're only going to make things worse.
Let's talk about that, the ego. How can we hang the ego at the door? What does that process look like?
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's look at it from an old guy perspective. I'm the old guy in the gym. I'm not the young guy, right? And I look at these guys and they're lifting heavy, and I'm like, dude, I used to be able to lift like that, or I could lift like that. But you have to just say, I'm not here for that. You know, here was my plan today. You have it written out. My plan today is to do this and do that. Don't, you know, get away from the plan. Stick to the plan that you have written out, or the plan that you have for that day, because then it's going to take twice as long to get back there. So I'll go to the gym now, put my head down, do my crazy training or whatever, you know, whatever it is, you know, unconventional or conventional, whatever it is. I'll just get down and I won't talk to anybody. I'll have my headphones on, my hat on, and just do what I got to do. And if somebody wants to get beside me and lift heavier, you know, all right, you know, go for it. I'm still going to lift what I'm going to lift. This is what I have planned. I'm not going to get into that fight with you. And believe me, dude, it's funny because people don't realize that, you know, I'm in my 50s. They think I'm still in my late 30s and 40s, and they're like trying to outlift me and do this and do that. Every once in a while, I'll fall for it and I'll hit something heavy, and they'll just look at me like, oh shit, he can lift. And I'll just put it back down and go back to what I was doing. It's really about getting into your head and knowing that this is your mission, and your mission is to do this. And once you complete your mission, you're going to feel that much better. Once you actually complete a mission, you know, something hard, you know, a transformation or something that's accomplished, you feel a hell of a lot better than you would if you hadn't. So you always want to go back to that feeling of accomplishment, and you got to write these things out. I mean, I am a note taker, and I literally have things written out because I know, especially when I was bodybuilding, you're certain weeks prior to your competition that you're going to go crazy because you're not eating as much, or you're not eating as much fat, or you're kind of really doing too many workouts and a little bit of this and a little bit because you got little time to kind of make your body this and that. You go crazy mentally because your hormones are all off. You know, your emotions are everywhere. You're mad, you're happy, you're crying, you're this or whatever it may be. But you have a book that you've written out and said, okay, today's the day I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to go crazy. I know that I shouldn't be doing this, but my body's telling me you need to do this. No, just stick to the plan. And it's about sticking to the plan. And that's where you get that onward, right? Forward and onward. Just stick to the plan. Don't worry about what's going on around you. Just do what you got to do. It's where you got to really train your mental capacity, that muscle, that, dude, stubborn. I'm doing this because this is what I have planned for today.
Mm-hmm. When do you write that plan? What does that planning stage look like?
If in a competition, we'll speak about competition right now. In a competition, I will write that plan 9 months prior to my competition, because I know it'll take me about 9 months to prep for a competition. And I'll write out what it is that I want to be at a certain time, and what it'll take to get there. The last 4 weeks prior to the competition are probably the craziest, because like I said, at that point in time, you're exhausted. You've already done it for 8 months. You got 1 month left. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. But if you were to stick to that plan that you wrote out, you should be exactly where you're at. It's funny too, because that's the way I take it into the competitions. Like, people go there and they're trying to look at everybody's body, like, oh, his body's better than my body. I go there, I'll go to the back, and I'll just go to sleep and wait for them to call me up on stage. You know, I don't talk to anybody. I just like crashed out or listening to whatever on my headphones, right? Not paying attention to anybody. Because when I go out there in front of a judge or the judges, it's just me and him. You know, it doesn't matter what the guy on the side did to me. It's about what I did in the gym and what I'm presenting to you. This is me, right? And that's the confidence that you need in life. It doesn't matter what Johnny or Susie's doing. Dude, this is what you're here to do. This is what you're getting paid for. This is what they're paying you for. They're not paying you to do this. They're paying you to do that. And that's where you shine. That's where you got to just build up that mental muscle.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned COVID a bit earlier, and we talked before our call about COVID's effect on you. And it had a big effect on you. You've lost many people. I think you said 14 friends and family to COVID.
Yeah.
What have you learned because of COVID?
A few things that what I'm doing with nutrition is actually working. because I'm able to go to places that are affected by COVID, and I'm able to walk away, COVID free, and my mental capacity is just as strong as it was before then. The hurt is that these people that have passed away, um, I wanted to do so much for them. It seems that everybody, visits me when it's like that wake up call, like, dude, I got this. What can you help me with? And it's like sometimes it's too late. And you're like, well, for years I've been trying to tell you to live this way, or for months I've been trying to tell you to do that way. And it's sad that when somebody loses their life that necessarily, didn't need to. Most of these people that lost their life, it was due to a precondition. It really, COVID was just the nail on the coffin. Sorry to say that, but it's just something that took them over the top. They already had, blood sugar levels, high, low. They had high blood pressure and edema and all these different issues, and it just shows me that the basics, is where people need to be, especially me. I thank God that all my family's okay. First off, every day I wake up and say, okay, you know what? It may not be perfect, but we're all here. We're all able to talk to each other. And I feel that it's important that we maintain that. We all have dreams of being bigger and better of anything, but without health, you can't achieve it. Or if you do, it's like short-lived, because your health sidelines you somehow, or even in death. So I really, put into effect that my working out to be this bodybuilder type of guy isn't important. It's about being able to run, swim, jump, happy, just being healthy, that I can achieve what I want to achieve, because that's more important. Like I said in the beginning, it's about 10 years into the future. 10 years in the future, I'm going to be, in my mid 60s. And where am I going to be? If you end up dying as an American average at 78, I got what, 12 years left, 13 years left. Or if I take care of myself and I just pace myself now, my 65, I could be just as healthy as I am to 75. And that's where things really tank. I don't care who you are. At 70 and past, your body, if you're 100% now, you are 10% at 80. You're 10% at 70. You're just totally depleted of everything. But how you make it to that finish line of, let's say, 70, is how the next 10 to 15 years, 20 years is going to be in your life. Did you make it broken, or did you make it in one piece? So I look at these things and saying, you know what, I could be a bodybuilder and I can compete, but you know what? I think 10 years from now, 5 years from now, in my 60s, I need to be healthy, because I'm not going to want to be this person then. And realistically, I'm not going to want to be this person. I'm just going to want to be somebody that can run, swim, and jump. And how do I achieve that? And it's really through nutrition, not supplementation, but you got to learn how to eat first. I could throw pills at everybody all day long, but they go back and eat, the chalupa and the Doritos burrito or whatever taco. It's not going to do them any good. It's just throwing a Band-Aid on something that's going to one day just reopen up, and another new wound is just going to be bleed out. So it's about nutrition. And I think through this COVID, nutrition and simple, basic walking and being in the sun is really taking the presence of what I do pretty much on a daily basis. I try to get as much natural of what I can, low hanging fruits type of stuff, walking in at dawn or walking at dusk, they getting that little extra sunshine in me, and using the vitamin D, all these things that people are, these terms that people are throwing out now, you get all that, but it's about being able to do it.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned at your age right now, a big priority for you is antioxidants.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me? I don't know much about antioxidants to explain it to someone else. Can you just give me an education on antioxidants and why they're so important to us, and how we could do better at that as a society and as an individual?
Sure. Well, you have our bodies are made of billions of cells, right? And oxidation is kind of what kills our cells. Oxidation, rust things, right? If we can look at it as a piece of metal, oxidation is rusting. So what do? We try to put something on it as an antioxidant so it doesn't rust, or it doesn't die off, or it doesn't die slowly. So with the antioxidants, which there are many forms of them, it gets into the cellular level of our bodies, and whatever is going wrong in your cell that can go wrong, pollution, stress, or whatever it is, it actually fights it off, and keeps your cells healthy. That's really important. And cells meaning that the energy that you get, mitochondria, all those things that you do in order to have a healthy body. Antioxidants actually protect it, right? They'll kill off some stuff, or they'll put on a metaphorical coating that doesn't let some of those harmful things get into your cells. And this is how we age over time. Our bodies become oxidated, right? And we get slower, we get older. And when a cell dies off, it reproduces. This is basic, but is a cell going to reproduce at 100% like we are when we're kids? Or is a cell going to reproduce at 50%? Okay. So if a cell, dies off and reproduces at 50%, then what happens the next time the cell dies? Does it go back to 100%? No, 50% is as good as it's going to get. And it maybe die off and become 40%, or it may get worse and worse and worse. And this is where disease kind of kicks in. So with the antioxidants, along with, proper nutrition, and nutrition is just whole foods, right? You can kind of stave away from, those cells, dying off, and then, being 50% of what they were. Maybe you can keep them at 100%. Maybe you can keep them at 80%. But having like nutrient-dense berries, you got cordyceps, you got mushrooms, all these things have these little antioxidant properties to them that, help your cells maintain a total health. It's really the only way I can describe it to you.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about mushrooms. I just watched the documentary Fantastic Fungi, and they talk about the magical things mushrooms can do. And you mentioned one real positive of mushrooms is their antioxidant capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Which mushrooms do you recommend?
Well, if you're looking at like immune system, right? You got like lion's mane, chaga, turkey tail. If you're looking at, trying to balance your hormones, you got something like ashwagandha, cordyceps. So there's different mushrooms that in combination that can do different things for you, right? So I really enjoy, cordyceps, lion's mane, turkey tail, chaga, just the basics that are easy to get, that way that my immune system, it seems to be working for my immune system. I don't get sick. And my stress levels, even through this whole COVID, I take a hit when somebody passes away because it hurts, but I'm not to the brink of, oh man, it's just like, it's never ending. It's death. It's me next. I don't do that. And I really, these mushrooms help my body itself maintain a vibrant aura, right? I've taken them for, years now. And then when I don't take them, I feel a little sluggish, right? So I totally believe in the fungi itself. Even, the psilocybin, type of fungi, it's all good for you in moderation. You take, gallons of chaga juice, or, pounds of chaga at one time, it's going to have an adverse effect because your body's fighting it. Now it's a fungi. It's like a poison it's going to think. But little by little, you take it, just enough, it builds it stronger.
Where can I get these mushrooms? Like, are you take them in powder form, or where can I get these?
Well, there's new products coming out all the time, and yeah, I do take them in powder. You can buy chaga whole, all right? Let's speak on chaga real quick, or you can buy it in a powder form. Um, you can go pick it yourself, depending on what part of the world you live in, right? Um, I usually get my stuff off of Amazon. You know, um, as a matter of fact, there's this new thing called Immune System at Costco, and it's got like 8 different mushrooms in it, and these are the ones I'm speaking on. The only one it doesn't have in it is ashwagandha, because ashwagandha isn't for the immune system; it's more for your hormones. So I went out and bought that and said, okay, I don't have to have 10 powders in front of me. I can just take this one capsule, and open it up and put it in my drink. Um, or you can go to your local health food uh, store. Asian markets have it. They have mushrooms. They have a lot of different medicinal. This is all coming from Eastern medicine, anyways. I know that we had like our indigenous people here that were into the mushrooms, but some of this stuff is coming in, actually originated in China and the Orient now out in that area. So we're fortunate now that we have a world market that we can kind of get these things. I suggest that everything you get though is organic. And the reason why I suggest organic, it's not because it's healthier, but I've found that organics have less, pesticides on them, if at all, versus a commercial brand. A lot of these supplements that are out, they put fillers in them. You see silica sand, you see a bunch of different things in it, and you just want it to be the mushroom, the powder. You don't want it to have these caking agents or anything like that. You just want it to be its basic powders. On it has a good brand of Alpha Brain that uses cordyceps and mushrooms. So there's a lot of quality things out there that you can get. Keon is another company that I look into. A lot of quality stuff. Thorn, some really good stuff. It's a little bit pricey, but you know what? You don't need to overtake it. Kind of like a daily vitamin. You don't need to take a daily vitamin every day. I take one every 2 days, because if I continuously take it, my body's going to adapt to it. And it's just, I don't know if it's working or not. So I'll take it and then I'll wait a day and I'll take it again. And that actually saves you money because it takes a 30-day jar and takes it into a 45 to 60-day jar, depending. And you still feel the same. I mean, sometimes, if I can speak on this for a second, food, people like right away, dude, I got 45 minutes to eat this protein powder, or drink this drink and eat this meal after my workout because that my body will reject it. And I asked them, I said, so in 45 minutes, your body's going to digest that and it's going to turn it into nutrients for your body, right? I go, no, what you ate yesterday or what you ate 12 hours ago is actually what your body's using right now. It's not what you just ate this morning. Yeah, you may have a little high because it had a little bit of sugar content to it, but the nutrients itself, they do not hit your body. It takes a while for food to digest. Same thing with vitamins. You want to take them every other day, unless the doctor says, or somebody recommends, dude, you need to take this every day, or you're really sick and you do. If you're a healthy individual, you don't need to take as many supplements every day as you think. The package tells you to because, so it's a sale. They want you to take this every 30 days. They have 30 days. Every 30 days, they get a new, bottle sent to you. It's not that. It's about what your body needs. And we don't need all that stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that we don't need, and that may be behind one of the most biggest problems right now in mental health, is inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on inflammation and how can we reduce that and combat this huge threat to our well-being?
Oh man, that's like right up my alley right there, man, because like here we go again. I'm going to speak on age. It doesn't, I'm healthy, but you know what? Age is age and my joints are 50 something years old, right? It's a big deal. And food in general, food allergies in general is the biggest form of inflammation. We don't realize it, but we're allergic to certain foods. And we've been so used to eating these foods that it's like, oh, okay, I just feel kind of funny, but I'm okay. My hand's swelling a little bit, but you know what? That always happens. I must have, I may have eaten too much salt or this and that, but it's actually a food allergy. We really need to pay attention to that, because in the long haul, this inflammation throws off our body, our hormones, right? And in bad ways, where we could be, having calcium in our blood because of inflammation, or, we have arthritis in our joints, or gout, and it based off of the food that you eat, not necessarily the supplements. I do take a turmeric, right? And I take that daily. It seems to help, with inflammation, from training. But when I really stick to my diet and I stay away from the foods that I know that give me inflammation, I don't really need the turmeric. It's because of the food that I ate. And, it really, you really have to pinpoint what it is. You really have to kind of dig into yourself and eat something and say, okay, I'm not feeling 100%. Doesn't necessarily mean that you got gas and bloating. It just means that, man, my heart's beating a little bit faster, or, I'm feeling a little hot underneath the collar, or just these little triggers that that this is the food that's not right for me. I mean, everybody grows up in a household where they have traditional foods, right? If you're Mexican, you're going to eat rice and beans. If you're, Asian, you're going to eat rice. You're going to eat pork. You're going to eat all these things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to eat that way. You have to eat for what is good for you. And there's 100 million different combinations of food out there that are healthy for you, that you don't need to eat the traditional foods. It took me a long time to learn that. I really had to reteach myself, like I said, how to eat. I mean, I had a lot of traditional pastas, this and that, but you know what? I was allergic to it, and I didn't realize it until I took it out of my diet. And then all those little problems that I was having on a daily basis went away, and that's where you get that aha moment, like, okay, you know what? This isn't something that I need all the time. Then when you do go back to eat it, you regret it, because you feel that pain again, or you feel that swelling. And over time, man, I mean, we're not talking today, just like cigarettes. You take one hit of a cigarette, you're not going to get lung cancer, but 10,000 packs in, you're getting closer. Just like food, one meal in, okay, it affects you a little bit, but over time, 30, 40 years, your body said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to fight it anymore. It just take over. And this is where disease starts settling in.
Mm-hmm. So from all the food talk and nutrition talk we've done, two of my takeaways in terms of your foundations of nutrition are moderation is huge,
Mm-hmm.
and whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
Moderation and whole foods. What else? What are some other to summarize your advice on food? There's moderation, there's whole foods, antioxidants, lower inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Well, that's in between all of those. Just layman is just stick to basics. If you make sure that you have quality over quantity, whole foods are good, but have high quality whole foods. Nutrient dense meat is the high quality to me, not the price, but the nutrient density of the foods. And along with that, you want to maintain a good, gut balance. A lot of these ancient cultures, they have like fermented foods, right? And we kind of gone away from that. Now, kimchi is becoming popular, or sauerkraut is becoming popular. But, you have Italians where you have mushrooms, or, you have olives that are in vinegar, or you have a balsamic vinegar, or even in the Middle Eastern, you have these tabbouleh and all these different types of fermented foods. I think that, you should really have those on a daily basis. This really helps keep the inflammation down. It's not a shot of coffee, but it's just something that over time you start feeling better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Basic foods.
My last thing about question about nutrition is about meat. So meat is an interesting subject. I think if you're going to eat meat, you have to eat like healthy meat that lived good lives and that were fed good food, rather than the cheaper garbage meat. Sometimes price is an option for people from having to be able to buy good meat.
Mhm.
So they're turning towards options like veganism or vegetarianism. Can those work? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's nothing wrong with being a vegetarian or being vegan, right? I mean, that's your choice. I don't put people down. But if you're doing this to, fill in a void or look cool, you're going to find that you need to really study on what veganism is and how people that are serious vegans eat. Not crazy vegans. I mean, people from like India, that this is what they do, that they are able to maintain a health, because there are certain things that you need that meat gives you that vegetables don't. And a lot of people get sick, in one area or another. And, with meat, you don't need a lot of meat. You just need enough I only eat like in a day. I'll have maybe 4 ounces of like a meat in itself. Or I've been, eating like a liver, right? Nutrient dense, still 4 ounces at a time. I don't need to overconsume meat. I need it as like just enough to, re-satisfy my body and the nutrients in it. So when you change to veganism and you're just doing that and you're just following somebody on Instagram and you're just going off their advice, they're not telling you statistics like, oh, I broke my hand because, my bone marrow's and my bones are weak, or I'm deficient in vitamin D, or, vitamin A because, there's certain vegetables that I can't get vitamin A. And if I do, I have to eat 30, 40, 50 pounds of them. So I would really do my research and figure out exactly with blood tests with the doctor what you are deficient in or what you could possibly be deficient in, and try to fill those voids. You might need to eat some type of animal protein somehow, some way, in a pill form or, in a powder, whatever it may be. You might need to do that because you know what, like I said, we're talking today as a healthy 37-year-old, but who are you at 54 and how healthy are you going to be then? This is what we have to look for. We have to look for the future. We can't just always eat for the day. It's just about what's going to happen 10 years from now. Just like our savings. If I keep spending money every day, 10 years from now, I'm not going to have any money in the bank. But if I put a little money in the bank every day, by the end of 10 years, it's life planning. And why can't we do that with food? Why can't we plan with food? We know that if we eat this way, we're going to maintain our health and we're not going to break down. I mean, there's people out there that knee problems, hand problems. And if your hands go, how are you going to eat, right? I mean, how are you going to
Mm-hmm.
write things? This is one of our things, feet go, how are you going to walk? So we
Mm-hmm.
really need to just buckle down and really take what we're doing serious. Food is, yeah, we eat it every day because it's a necessity. But if you're going to go in a certain lifestyle change like that, really, really do your research and find out the pros and cons. And if you're going to continue doing it, try to overcome those cons with, food that you can eat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, as we move to a close, I feel we could talk on forever. You dropped so much wisdom. I'm really grateful for your time, Shawn. So let's end with a few last questions. The first being, of all these lessons you've learned on the path, what has been your greatest life lesson learned on your journey thus far?
Okay. Simplicity is always best. You know, every time that I've like branched out and I try to do too many things at once, food, life, whatever, I've always slipped up somewhere. And then you have to sit yourself down and say what's important, basic things. Once you get those basic things under control, then you can work towards your other stuff. It's funny because at one time I had like, when I was doing tech stuff, I had 4 different businesses going on. Not only was I working 60 hours a week, but I was working, actually another 40 hours at home. And I was going crazy. And what was happening? My life was slipping, underneath me. My health was going. I wasn't, I was so busy doing what I was doing that my life was kind of floating away. This is one of those down points. And, for what? For a buck, and I really had to sit down and say, look, The doctor's telling me I'm gonna be dead in 10 years, and you know, what do I got to show for it, right? Fancy car. I can't get buried with it. Or can I make some memories in 20, 30 years now with my grandkids? You know, this is kind of basics. Just basics is what I took away from it. Always go back to the basics with anything, the fundamentals, right? Fundamental training, fundamentals of life.
Mm-hmm. In 3 words or less, how would you describe the experience you are having on this earth?
Life is beautiful.
Excellent. Yeah. And the last question here for you is, let's fast forward in time, and we're going to fast forward to an 85-year-old Shawn Powers. Mm-hmm. What does that 85-year-old's life look like? And what is the legacy you've left behind?
Okay. I want to be at 85 wiser, right? And I want to be a mentor and continue to be a mentor for my kids, my grandkids, and for my community. I working towards being physically active, right? If it's just walking or, you know, swimming, just the simple stuff. I do not want to be bedridden. I do not want to be a burden and be sick. I want to have a vibrant life still, and people looking at me as, wow, I want to be him one day, you know? And I try to tell that to people. I ask myself that question all the time because I talk to a lot of older people, and I say, well, I'm in my mid 50s. And I'm like, man, you're still young. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, when I was at your age, man, I wish I was back at your age because I could do this and do that. And he goes, but what you want to do is you want to be as physically active at my age. And you got to learn at one point in time that enough is enough. And you want to take a different road, and you want to work towards something different than where you're at today, you know? And I take that to heart, because me being the old guy in the gym, I'm thinking like, no, I'm the young guy at the gym, you know, because you get these other guys in here that are old and they're walking around with broken backs. And I don't want to be that person. I really want to maintain my health, which is the most important. You know, life will happen. I will always breathe. I will need to eat a meal, everything else, but I don't want to be feeding the grass, right? I want to stay this side of the grass for as long as I can and not be a burden on my family. So an 85-year-old Shawn is going to be a vibrant, you know, healthy as I can. I just had an aunt. She just passed away. She was 105, and she is my mentor, you know, as far as, you know, family goes. And she was physically active all the way up to the end. And I want to be her, you know. It doesn't matter when I die. I just want to die with, you know, at 100%, you know, 100%, meaning I can get out of bed, do what I need to do, and enjoy life. Because like I said, life is beautiful, and this is what we make of it.
Mm-hmm. And I want you to picture this 85-year-old Shawn Powers in your head right now. Mm-hmm. Picture them living their life, their best life at 100%. And I'm going to bring us back to the present, 2020. And what message does that 85-year-old Shawn Powers send to the current Shawn Powers in his 50s?
Continue on your path of health and family, because when you get my age, which I'm 85, when you get my age, all your friends and everybody else that was in your life doesn't matter. It's about who's with you at the time and who you enjoy being around. So make sure you continue building on those relationships and maintain your health, because you want to have a fruitful life, but you want to see your grandkids and your kids grow up to be, you know, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, yep. Shawn.
Sure.
What are you doing these days, and where can people find you?
You know, I do mentoring, food mentoring, I call it now, right? Because I kind of online. You can message me. You know, we could put that out there. I really maintain a Facebook account. I know that, you know, I could be doing Instagram or this and that, but I have 5,000 friends, and I've had 5,000 friends for, you know, 10 years now. And I really think I'm able to get to these people because they know me, and it's more of a personal level than getting on the Instagram and I have, 10,000 people that I don't even know. But I every day I just try to put out, just the message of there's a better way. Here's a better way to make this food. This is what I ate today and I feel great. Here's some supplements that, some science behind it that you might think of taking, right? And through this, I'm able to really effectively get to people. I don't even call them clients. Like I said, I'm just mentoring people. Yeah, I mean, there's a nominal fee, but these people, I want them to be better. I actually don't want to be popular. I don't want to be the superstar, this and that. It's not me. I just want to effectively help somebody. And I think the less of a superstar I am, the more effective I am, because it's more believable. I'm not trying to sell them on a product per se. I'm trying to sell them that you can be a better person and you can do it yourself. So it'd be my Facebook account, and then you can message me, that way, and we can contact each other and I can friend you. I was going to create a Facebook page, probably what I should be doing. That way I can reach more people. I do have one. It's the Underground Strength Camp. It's on my Shawn Powers Facebook. You can click there and I'll start posting to that. Like I said, I just want to be effective to people. 1, 10, 100 million, whatever, it just doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
To close, we raise our fist and we bring you in for a digital fist bump.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm grateful for your time, and I'm sure moving forward we'll have many more of these conversations. There's so much more wisdom you have to share, and
Sure.
there's so much me, my audience, and anyone who's interested can contact you on your Facebook and learn so much from you.
Right. Yeah. And, real quick, we didn't even get into my training. This is food. This is, one part of it. So yeah, next time conversation, we'll get into the physical aspect stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This first episode, I just wanted to show people the heart behind you,
Yeah.
and that and the winner behind that heart, because we all could recognize a little bit of ourselves in your story, and we could all be a winner. And that's what you taught me with your welcome to the winner's table speech, right, which inspired welcome to the winner's circle.
Nice, man. I'm proud of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one. I'm going to sign off here.